The Dingers podcast is on the air. This is episode 103. Boys, we have a lot to talk about. The Cubs gave us an early Christmas present, and his name is Dansby Swanson. How are you guys tonight there, Jake and Jeff? Jeff, just like we hope Dansby Swanson can be bringing us some rings, I heard you got a big, flashy, shiny ring this weekend.
Yeah, I did. We placed second in the tournament that the sixth grade boys that I help coach, and I got this huge paperweight. It's pretty ridiculous.
That's nice.
Yeah. So the championship game went like this. We played a style of basketball that was
like Grinnell, like the team from Iowa that just launches threes.
No, we played like the boys from Hoosiers that played for Hickory High School, and the team we played was launching three-pointers like the guys from Grinnell. They were from Cedar Falls. The one kid was taller than me that scored the most points, and I'm pretty sure he drove to the tournament, so I'm not sure that he was 12, but whatever. So, no. So, no, we had a good time. The kids played really hard the first two games. We had a short bench with only one reserve, so they fought hard in both the first two games to come from behind and win. So I was pretty proud of the way they played all weekend. So,
Jake, how about you? How was your weekend?
Well, I didn't win any basketball tournaments, but I finally got a new pair of basketball shoes for the first time in about a decade. So that's nice. Looking forward to breaking those in. No rings, just shoes. I was driving home from picking up these shoes when I saw the big news this weekend that Jed finally got us a guy, and not to poo-poo the Bellinger and Tyone signings, but we got one of the four big ones, and I'm excited to break down the Swanson signing. I think there's a lot to talk about. How's your weekend, Mitch?
Well, I've been hunting, like I would say, from bow season until now gun season, and now it's back to bow season. I've put probably 2-3 weeks of time in the woods. Like the last 2 weekends, I've been in the woods at like 5:30, and I get out at 5:30 at night, and started being really picky. Well, this weekend I was out again, and it was cold and snowy, and so I'm out hunting, not seeing much, not seeing any movement. So what do? I check my phone and see, and it was like at 3:30 when I saw it, like 3:30. And so I know I need to get content out. And so I'm like, I take off my gloves and I'm on my phone trying to like get graphics up, get messages out, get tweets out. And I am freezing. My hands are icicles, like trying to do all this. At the same time, like some deer like moving into the field at the same time. I was like, if we get Conforto and I get a big buck in the same day, this is the best day ever. Like, but I'm like tweeting out, making graphics. But yeah, that's where I was when the news broke, and I was super jacked. Like I was wanting to just yell out and like freak out, but I couldn't. Said be quiet. But yeah, super jacked about the signing. Hopefully this is just the start of a couple more big signings that we have coming forward. Jed says he's not done. We already somebody in the chat saying Conforto's next. Blake will do it. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit more. But yeah, pretty jacked about the whole signing. And
what's her last name?
Jeff kind of mentioned this earlier.
I don't really recall. Starts with an S. So Swammi, Slippy, Slappy, Swanson?
Maybe it's on the briefcase. Look on the...
Oh, yeah, it's right here. Samsonite. I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Well, we're glad that Jed didn't sign Samsonite. We're glad that Jed got our guy. Got the guy that we needed. Maybe not the guy that a lot of Cubs fans wanted, but got us one of the big four shortstops. Initial take, Jake, where are you at? What you thinking?
Yeah, I know on the rundown here, the first thing we talk about is the deal, and I think that's the big thing to take into account here, right? I mean, the big sense is that and obviously we don't know what Hoyer's thinking, but the big outside sense from amongst fans is that he didn't want another Hayward contract on his hands. And we kind of talked about it last week. I don't think that Turner or Correa, I think those contracts are going to age pretty well. Like, I think, barring some major injury for either or both of them, I think they're going to be good into the later years of those contracts. But so to refresh fans, I'm sure everybody listening probably already knows, but we signed Swanson to a 7-year deal, $177 million total. So I think the average annual value of that is about $25 million.
Full no trade clause.
Full no trade clause, which is interesting. If it comes to a point where a trade needs to be made, the player can always waive the no trade clause, but he can't be included in a deadline deal without his approval. And that is important to note. That means it's likely that we are going to be with Dansby Swanson for the next 7 years, through the thick and thin. But I think overall, I really like the deal. I think it's a really great deal. He's 29 years old, so we'll have him until he's 36. I think he's a solid player, obviously a great defender, Gold Glover at shortstop. And I think the comparison that I've made, I think I made it on the show here. If not, I think I've tweeted about it. I expect him to be, not expect, but I think I want fans to focus on it in the sense of how we've seen Ian Happ progress over the last couple seasons, right? He really took off in the second half of 2021, and then he carried his success. Though he was lacking a little bit of the power last year, he carried over the offensive success and won a Gold Glove last year. So I think they're about the same age. Happ might be a year younger, but that's kind of what I expect out of Swanson. Like, I'm hoping that this past season, which was an offensive outlier for him, I hope that this past season is one that he's, kind of unlocked whatever was missing in his offensive profile and kind of carries it forward and, into the next half of his career, like Happ hopefully could continue to do.
Yeah. Jeff, you did your crack 'em.
Yeah.
Let's crack 'em. I'll join you. But what's on tap with Toppling Goliath? We have a little bit of Deck the Halls with Dorothy's, the number one selling beer in the tap room week over week.
That's a great lager, fellas.
It is
It's
a
delicious.
great lager. Delicious. So get yourself some Dorothy's for the holidays. Enjoy some great Toppling Goliath. But tonight I have a Pseudo Sue I'm going to be cracking, or I cracked and ready to drink in celebration of the signing with Dansby. Initial, just right off the start, Jeff, what is your initial takes on the Dansby Swanson signing?
Well, I think we should have one of the best defenses up the middle. If we put Horner at second, Dansby at short, both of them are contact hitters. I also thought about this the other day. How is it that any free agent player that comes to the table doesn't say, well, you give Hayward 8 years and $188 million. What's the deal? Pay me. It just blows my mind. And maybe that's part of their problem. But I do like it. I love it. We got a young veteran player that's he's won a World Series, so he's been through the playoffs, like tough playoff runs too. I really think he'll be able to help some of the younger players out as they come up too. I'm still kind of concerned about the hot corner and first base. What's going to land there?
Yeah, we'll get into the maybe who we should sign here in a little bit, but yeah, that's still got a lot of question marks still on this team.
So bearing injury, we're going to have a really great defensive middle.
Yep. When you look at Dansby Swanson and what he can add to this team, he was a 6.4 WAR player this last season, or projected to get this next season on Fangraphs. He had 25 home runs, 96 RBIs, a Gold Glove winner. And he joins Nico Horner, who was a 4.0 WAR player, who will slide over to second base. And they will, I think Jeff Passan even tweeted out that the Cubs have the best up the middle defense in baseball. Like, that's something to be proud of. That's something that we're going to get to. Hopefully they sign an extension with Nico. And that's something that us Cubs fans get to take in and enjoy for the next 7 years. that we get to watch some amazing defense. And like what we forget about is our pitchers pitch to contact a ton. Stroman is a ground ball pitcher who you need really good guys up the middle to pick that ball. And they got it. They got a guy that can flat out play great Gold Glove defense. And he is a Gold Glover. I mean, even when you look at the top ranked defensive shortstops, the OOA, which is outs above average metric that shows skill of out saved, the player is saved. Dansby Swanson is plus 21. He was first this last year. And Nico Horner was plus 13. He was second this year. So you got the two defensive players. Now, Nico got hit a little bit and dinged because the Cubs shifted him so much and put him in position to make great plays, which almost hurt him in the score. He probably could have got a little bit higher score if the Cubs weren't so good at like shifting him over and putting him in the exact right position, because it does factor into like how much range you have. But there we have the number 1 and number 2 guy, and that's with Horner being shifted perfectly, and not even his range numbers were super low. But even like forget about all the little hidden value that Swanson brings to this team. He's durable, plays 162, plays 160. Like he's a gamer. He's in there. He doesn't get hurt. Watch, he gets hurt this year. He's a winning ball player, played Vanderbilt, played Braves, winning championships. And he's a great base runner. And you pair him with Cody Bellinger and all the problems that we had on the base pass last year. Like, that's a huge addition of just base running. And like, I think this team, like you saw kind of in the middle of last year, how much Ross liked to steal bases. Even more so this year with bigger bases. I think that's going to come in huge, where he's going to have these guys on the bases, stealing bases, getting in scoring position, putting it on a Mervis, on a Hap to drive some runs in. But you have Swanson, who 96 RBIs, that would put him in the top 1 or 2 on our team last year, maybe 1. I don't know who was our RBI leader last year, but 96 is a lot of RBIs. I remember when we would celebrate Bryant and Rizzo getting 100. Like, that's huge. So like I'm super jacked. And like even in this stat I saw, I don't know who tweeted it, but Cubs batters on 95 miles an hour plus pitches, batting average was 237, slug was 346, and their WOBA was 303. Dansby Swanson average is 291, 631 slug, and 418 WOBA. Like, those just ridiculous numbers on pitches above 95, which that's where the league is at right now, is gas. Just throw it hard and gas. And so it's exciting to see what he can add to this team. I'm super jacked for spring training to start. Let's get some games going right now. I'm excited. I can't wait to watch him up the middle with Nico. Seeing the first double play happen is gonna be magic.
Gonna be hot.
It's gonna be still.
We got some lookers up the middle.
Yeah.
I think it's worth noting too, like Mitch, you touched on it. Not only does our shortstop defense get better, though you know, Nico should have been a Gold Glove finalist last season too. He got snubbed, but our second base defense likely becomes the best in the league. I would be surprised if Nico is not a Gold Glove finalist at second base this year. But on top of that, Nico becomes probably, off the top of my head, like a top 3 offensive second baseman.
Oh yeah,
because like, who hits for pop at second base? I mean, Ozzie Albies when he's healthy, but that hasn't come very, very often over the last few seasons.
Brandon Drury when he played second base.
Yeah, but I know we're going to talk about Drury a little bit, but that also that was kind of an offensive outlier for him this past season. So that'll be. I'm excited to dive into those numbers, but yeah, I mean, Jose Altuve is still getting it done. I know people don't really like him anymore. I still do. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, I think that I don't expect Nico
Marcus
to be,
Semien.
Yeah, Semien. Yeah, but that's also because he was able to move over to second base off of shortstop because he's on the team with Corey Seager.
Yep.
and then Bo Bichette the year before that. So yeah, I mean, it improves the defense, it improves the team. I know we'll talk about it. I think the big thing is if Swanson can improve his strikeout rate a little bit and get on base a little bit more, hopefully improve. Hopefully that's the next thing that happens. I talked about the offensive profile solidifying and hitting that next tier, just how Hap did. Hopefully the next step for Swanson is balancing it out with some on-base percentage and some walks worked into the mix.
Yeah, and you brought up Hap, which it's a great comparison, and Kyle in the comments kind of gave you that nod. You saw with Hap this year, his power numbers kind of declined, but
yeah. I
would take that in a heartbeat, that he became a better overall rounded player. He did more for this team by hitting less home runs, I would say, than what he did the years prior when he would K a whole bunch. He wasn't clutch in situations where guys were on base. Now when Hap comes up, you're like, no, he's going to make good, hard, solid contact. He still can hit the long ball. Yeah. I think Lance Brzdowski came out with a video about Swanson's swing and miss, and that doesn't project well for future projections sort of later in the contract. And it's a great video. I would recommend going and checking it out. But like, I also look at him kind of like a Hap. He's not done developing. He's still a young dude, and you've seen him adjust even the last couple of years. Like, he struggled with hitting pitches low in the zone. And what does he do this year? He changes his launch angle a little bit and gets down there, and his batting average on pitches below the zone and home runs that he's driven out has went up. So like, I'm not too concerned. I'm interested to see how he does look later in the year, later in his contract, and at what point in the contract do Nico and him switch again, and Nico move back over to short, and he move over to second. I don't know, but like,
and it's worth noting too, just really quick, touching on his K rate. So this past season, he had a 26.1% strikeout rate, which is not terrible. I mean, there's room for improvement, but league average last season was 24.2. So you're off by 1.9%. For your potential, I wouldn't call it. Swanson's not a superstar. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be a very good player for the Cubs. At least I hope so. But for your very good caliber player, you'd like to see that K rate around league average. So hopefully we can see. So the league average walk rate, he was off by 1.6%. So if we can get those to kind of balance out a little bit and come toward the average for Major League Baseball, it's going to end up looking like a really great signing.
And we forget his hot boy metrics when you put him with Nico and in Wisdom.
Could you imagine if we still had KB?
Woo!
It'd be like
my wife might tune in now to a little bit more games. Like,
are you guys reading like Cosmopolitan or what the hell?
Jeff, we know that you're big on the hot boy metrics and what they add to the team. And Dansby, even though he's taken, he's got the flow, the nice beard.
I say the scarier looking, the better, man.
I don't expect him to be the everyday first baseman. I think a lot of things would have to happen for it to be the case. But let's not sleep on Alfonso Rivas either.
Yeah, he's another hot boy.
I might have to make a Hot Boy Summer themed Cubs poster.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lanta.
But just like that, he's going to put
it'll be on the wall behind Jeff.
He's going to sell those tickets that Ricketts needs. Those ladies are going to be coming to watch Dansby. You see down in Atlanta, Hot Atlanta.
Yeah, Hot Atlanta. Hey, sorry,
that's
ladies.
That's why they called it Hot Atlanta, was because of Dan. So it's not Hot Atlanta anymore.
Yeah, it's not Hot Atlanta. It was because
people didn't. Little known fact, Dansby is
lukewarm Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have Thick Boy Austin Riley, so maybe it's Thick Boy Summer in Atlanta. What does Swanson need to do better, like, to make those adjustments? We talked about his getting his K rate down. Is there anything else that you want to see him grow? Like where do you think are some holes in his game? Like I've dug in a little bit. I do want to see a little bit more driving the ball opposite field. Like he kind of had the Nico Horner stat where he hits a lot of pull home runs. We kind of saw it later in the year this year. We saw him drive the ball oppo a little bit more. But would like to see just like the same thing with Nico. I want to see this year with Nico. I want to see a huge jump where he can start driving the ball with his slug to the opposite side of the field. Put it in the gap, in the right center gap. So that's something that I kind of want to see. What about you, Jeff?
Have either of you guys looked to see how many like ground ball outs he contributed to last year? Is that low? Because if it's anything like Hayward's pace, like I'm gonna be pissed.
I think his I have to look at this really quick. I was looking at it before. His batted ball data was really good in terms of, where is this here? Hang on. I think his line drive rate is like insane, which is what you want to see. Yeah, line drive rate last season of 21%. And I want to say like anything above 15 is solid. So to be at 21.2% is fantastic. A 38.7 ground ball percent rate is low, and 40% fly ball. Like, let me pull up Hayward's really quick just to like give a
nice comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Like when I was looking at those numbers, I thought line drive rate is what you want to see. Like you want to see guys hitting line drives.
I mean, that's what we were asking to see for Nico last year, and we got it. Like you start lifting the ball early in the season. We're like, okay, this is a different Nico.
So I might be wrong about the 15% line drive rate. Maybe 20% is a good margin. But Hayward's career ground ball rate was 48.7% compared to Dansby's 40.9, and it's fallen in the last 4 years compared. It's been under 40% his last 4 seasons. So that is interesting to note. In his first 3 seasons, he was hitting the ball on the ground more. But his last 4 seasons, he's been hitting the ball in the air more frequently. So not by much. I mean, that includes line drives and fly balls, but he has been hitting the ball in the air more than on the ground. So that's good.
Hey, do we have any stats from Swanson from his games he played at Wrigley Field as a Brave?
Oh, I think
we got that lake effect. Sometimes it blows in, sometimes it blows out.
I do know that if he would have played a full season last year in Wrigley, he would have had 33 home runs. So instead of his, what do you have? 25. So there's that.
We got a shorter porch somewhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Jake's looking that up. I'm gonna pose the question because I know a lot of people were about this right after the Swanson signing. Eric, we'll get into that here in a little bit. Stay tuned about what does Jed have up his sleeve next?
An arm.
Facts.
Always literal.
What do we do with Madrigal?
Bench player. Platoon him. Because
I know a lot of people were like, oh, this is a sign that Madrigal's gone. He's going to be traded. What do you think? Like,
he's too short to play first, and he's too short to play third. He's going to have to be a platoon player.
Unless he gets thick, then he could be third maybe.
Well, he'd be a short John Kruk then if he got thick.
Yeah.
I think that the big problem, he's not a viable option at third base because of his arm strength, unfortunately. I mean, that was even something that like people were saying before he joined the Cubs or before he played a game for the Cubs, that like people were worried about his arm strength at second. It's like, that's, So the thing is, I think they'd be dumb to trade Madrigal. I do. I came out as, being Team Madrigal over the last couple weeks. Juice on tap. Our boy says, heard Section 223 needs a beer guy. Hey, if he can be a beer guy while, and still come off the bench from the stands, that's great. Great for the fan experience. And then Scott C says Madrigal should be traded to the White Sox. They need a second base. I think their catcher is a fair trade. I don't want anything to do with Grandal.
I don't want
Nothing.
anything either with Grandal.
I don't want any.
But they do need a second baseman.
Yeah, and obviously the Cubs need another catcher. But like, and that's something that I kind of want to talk about. I forgot to. I didn't have time to write it
What's
in the
wrong with
notes today,
Yasmani Grandal?
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, the guy can't hit anymore.
Yeah, he horrible this last year.
You know, we used to have a catcher that could hit.
What was his name?
He's dead to me.
He's dead to me now.
Michael Barrett.
Yeah.
He could throw a haymaker.
He could land it.
My take on Nick Madrigal is this. You need guys off the bench. You need guys that can fill in for Nico if he gets hurt, because he has had some injuries in the past. You need a guy that can give a Nico or a Swanson a rest so that he doesn't play 162 or 160. That shouldn't be something that he does regularly, especially as he gets older. And you need a guy in this lineup that does have contact. I know contact last year didn't work out so well, but you look at our lineup, we didn't have a lot of you saw how much we struggled picking dinger picks. We had a hard time making our choices because there was nobody that could drive the ball. Now in this lineup, when you have Swanson who K's every once in a while, you have a Bellinger that we don't know what we're going to get, if he might K, but in his past he's been a strikeout guy. Wisdom is a strikeout guy, so you might need a guy every once in a while to fill in, to break up that order and be a contact guy. I am totally fine with Nick Madrigal, and if we can get the Nick Madrigal that batted 277 with a 348 OBP during August, that Nick Madrigal, a healthy Nick Madrigal, that's the guy who I want on the bench coming up. I mean, contact plays when you're off the bench. Like,
yeah,
so,
I mean, I think that's the exact. I mean, remember Tommy LaStella? Like, it wasn't that long ago.
Tommy!
Yeah, 3 a.m., man. That guy wakes up and is ready to hit. And I think we could get that in Madrigal. And we've seen that his defense at second base is not nearly as bad as everybody was saying it is. So I think if you're going to be a contender at any level in Major League Baseball, Tommy LaStella is yes, Tommy LaStella, but Nick Madrigal is the kind of depth option that you want on your bench.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a better scenario that he doesn't have to be an everyday player. But like we talked about, if we didn't land one of the shortstops, I was ready to be all in on Madrigal. And I don't think that there's injuries have been what plagued this guy. And like I said last week, he's hit at every level. There's no reason that fans should be down on Madrigal. Like, people get hurt. As I said last week, he had a really rough injury that he was returning from. So we got Swanson. Let's stop with the Madrigal hate and just see what the guy can do in a limited role next season.
Yep. I said right from the get-go, like, you need guys like Nelson Velasquez and Nick Madrigal on the bench. They're going to provide some big at-bats throughout this season that are going to come up big and win us some games that we're going to need. I could see them both, like, pinch hitting in the 8th, 9th inning and doing the small thing that we need to drive in a run or moving a guy over. Like, they're going to be doing the things that we need. And so, like, I don't hate Nick Madrigal like Cubs Twitter hates Nick Madrigal. But yeah, I think that keeping him is a better option right now. But
I really quick, I do have those Swanson at Wrigley numbers.
Hit it.
And just so they're kind of limited, but I'll go through the years. So 2017, his first time playing at Wrigley. We'll just go by WRC plus and plate appearances. 2017, 16 plate appearances, 156 WRC plus. 2018, 11 plate appearances, 184 WRC plus. 2019, in 17 plate appearances, he had a 99 WRC plus. 21 was 15 and 116. 22 was 13 and 117. So he's been an above average offensive player in smaller sample sizes. But I mean, that overall sample size is, I don't know, let's, 15 times 5 math, like 75-ish. So in 75 plate appearances, he's had a WRC plus of probably like 120-ish. So you'll take that, man. I mean, you can't really extrapolate that over a full season of 81 games at Wrigley, but he's had success. Great WOBA. Only one season where he didn't play above average, and it was just below average at Wrigley. So I'm excited. I don't know. Is that something that they looked at? I don't know. I don't think it's a big enough sample size, but it's intriguing.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I was just curious.
Yeah, I think it is something to be curious about. I think it was a good.
Even players that have been on the team for a while, when they leave spring training and they get to April baseball
in Chicago,
it screws with them.
That's curious. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. We don't know what time of year. I remember one of those games had to be that like 14 inning. Was that it? No, not a 14 inning game. There was a huge comeback game in like 2019. Yeah, where it was like raining in April. And it was
against the Mets.
Cold. No. There was it was Cubs Braves, and they came back.
Oh yeah, no. Like, yep, I remember that game.
Yep, or something like that.
Yep,
and that Swanson had to be on the team there, so he, he's experienced that cold weather. But
let's look a little bit at our possible projected batting order. You got Nico, Dansby, Ian Happ, Seiya, Bellinger, Wisdom at DH, Mervis at first, Jan Gomes, and then Christopher Morel. This is before any other signings that we have. And there was this little tidbit that was on Marquee Sport Network that Lance Brozdowski was on, and he's a friend of the pod, but Bruce Levine had something interesting to say.
Hi, Ryan Dempster, to send us a projected lineup with the really nice number 2 hitter Dansby Swanson slotted right in there. Let's take a look at that. And Bruce, off the top, man, the 1-2-3 looks really good. Horner, Swanson, Happ. Then you go to Suzuki, Bellinger, Wisdom. Mervis, Gomes, Morel finishes it off. Do you have any thoughts on this? What would you change? What do you love?
Well, what I'll change is the fact that Lance, they're going to add a couple more players. So Michael Conforto is missing from this lineup. And eventually, I think a guy like Conforto will be in there because they need a DH. They need someone to work with Mervis. There's other names that are going to be out there as well. But
so Bruce Levine saying some bold things. What do you think about adding Conforto? I know Twitter today was kind of going nuts of, I can't remember who tweeted it, but throughout the little bit of rumors of Conforto, the Cubs are still in on Conforto. So what do you think about adding Conforto there, Jake?
I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Pitcher spot.
Right? I mean, one of the things that we've been missing since since Rizzo, we traded Rizzo, and since Schwarber left, we need a left-handed power bat. And Conforto is that. Curiously enough, like I was looking at his numbers, his WRC plus, I was looking at the shift. So like actually his average without the shift is 314 if we're going to go like old school numbers. And with the shift, traditional shift in 2021, it was 263. And the weird thing is the WRC plus doesn't really seem to translate there because without a shift, it was 85. And with the traditional shift, it was 65. So I don't really know how that works because he was an above average WRC plus player in 2021, if we're going to nerd out about it. But if we're going to be straightforward about it, I think it makes all the sense in the world to add him. He's got good on-base skills. I don't think that he'd be playing a lot of defense with our outfield. I think he would be signed as a DH.
Yep.
And then, fill in the outfield as needed. He'd be playing corner outfield, most likely. I think left field is his position.
Right field.
Or is it right field? Okay.
It says right field.
Okay. Yeah. Dude's been out for, a season plus. So, and that's the other thing too, right? Like this guy was good when he was playing, and he was very under the radar, but only one season with a below average WRC plus. That's 2016. It was a 97. So still like right around league average. But he's been averaging a 124. I also just realized that the numbers I was talking about with Dansby earlier, comparing his K rate to the league average, that was wrong. I was looking at his career averages. So I'll tweet that out what the actual averages are. But yeah, I think Conforto makes all the sense in the world. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Any additions we can make this team to like close up some of the Swiss cheese holes, that'd be awesome. We're gonna kind of clog. I think he's gonna be. If we do sign him, he's gonna be more of a designated hitter because if him and Sayer are gonna have to swap playing right field or being DH or something, because we're kind of gonna clog up the outfield.
Yeah.
I mean, who's gonna back up center field?
I think either Morel or Nelson Velasquez.
Right.
Or Nico. We might see Nico in some center field too.
Could. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, the thing that I like about Conforto is he's left-handed at bat.
Right.
We need a left-handed bat in there.
Years past, we've been so top-heavy, right-handed batting line. I mean, we might have like one left-handed, and they probably weren't that great. It was just, we ran 8 right-handed batters out there, so it was pretty easy to pitch to us.
It was Rafael Ortega and Alfonso Rivas.
Yep.
Not really any threats at the plate.
Right.
Yeah. So if you add Conforto that has some pop, and you throw in Hap, and you get Mervis, if we get the Mervis
really
that everybody thinks that we're getting out of Mervis.
So people think he's going to start with the Cubs this year.
Well, that's why they need to go get, and let's dig into it, because we have. This leads us into talking about Michael Conforto. We need to pick up another catcher. We need either a first base, third base, or a combo a guy that can play both. And we need a DH still. Those are the guys. Conforto would fill that DH role. He could move out in the outfield. Other guys that are available for that DH / first base, third base. We have a Brandon Drury. We talked about him a little bit. What do you think about Drury, Jake?
I honestly, I don't know enough about like his career. I mean, I've heard, obviously before last year, I'd heard of Drury because he was on the Reds, right?
Yep.
So we played him.
He killed us in the first half.
Of course, he was a Cubs killer. But I don't know, man. He's what was he, 31?
Yeah, he's pretty young.
I don't know. I should. Sorry that I wasn't prepared here. But it's because overall, like, Drury doesn't really do much for me. Again, like, I think he might be a good complementary piece, but the problem right now is that you're signing him after a career year. So I would imagine that whatever he signs for is going to be a multi-year deal. I'm not expecting over 4 years, but
I think he signs a 1-year deal.
Really?
I think some of these guys that are left over, even like a Conforto, I could see Conforto signing a 1-year deal.
Conforto makes more sense.
To prove it. I even think Drury, because he's only had one breakout year, that teams don't want to sign him to a long deal because he's only really done it for 1 year. And so they're like, prove it a second time, that before we go and give you bags, prove it again. I do have a funny story, because when I was at the Field of Dreams game, I was walking through the cornfield with some Reds fans, and they were looking at all the cardboard cutouts of the players. And I turned and asked one of them, I said, "Hey, where's the Brandon Drury cutout? I really want to take a picture with him." And they didn't get it, but the Reds fan behind me just yelled, "Shut up, dude!" Like, too soon, because it was right after the trade deadline when they traded him. But yeah, I mean, Drury is interesting. He raked in the playoffs. He killed it the first half. Kind of struggled moving out to San Diego, but that field is really tough to hit in. So I know a lot of people really struggle going out to San Diego. But I don't know. Like, he's one that it's tough for me if they're going to do a deal, they better not give him a whole bunch of money. Like it better be but 1 year deals, you can't go bad on a 1 year deal. I know Juice always says that on tap, like 1 year deals are great because it's only 1 year, only invested in it for 1 year, especially with where the Cubs are at this year. Why not take a chance on some like Drury or more like Conforto? If he wants a 1 year, give him something like what you gave Bellinger and see what you get out of him, because you might get lightning in a bottle, and then you could either flip him at the deadline or re-sign him. I don't know. So I like either one of those guys. Catcher.
Yeah, I want to pull up. Can we pull up Joey's comment about the Madrigal 831? So we got some good comments here I want to address. So
yeah,
Mitch, you said catcher, and Joey Ricotta said, what if you can trade Madrigal in a package for Jansen? And he's referencing Danny Jansen of the Toronto Blue Jays. This past year,
Blue Jays have like 3 catchers.
They've got 3 catchers, and they're all good.
Yeah.
And Jansen kind of seems like the odd man out, an Illinois native, or at least he was born in Illinois for what it's worth. I like it. I like Danny Jansen. He's had some injury issues. Looking at last year he played in 70-some games. I think it's 72. And he had an oblique injury, which is, that's usually an extended IL stint. And then a finger injury in June. But in his sample size, I mean, we're looking at a 140 WRC plus, 260, 339, 516 slash line, which is great, and a 256 ISO behind the plate, which you love to see. Good walk rate, really solid K rate. I think Jansen's great, and he was a top prospect coming up with the Cardinals, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Jansen. I don't think Toronto, with having Whit Merrifield and Biggio as their second baseman, like I think they're pretty committed to Merrifield. Like Biggio, I think they went and got Merrifield because they didn't trust what Biggio was providing, and I think they're looking to unload him somewhere. I don't know if they would do that, but I mean, I would love to have Jansen from them.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to take on Biggio either. I think Biggio, it's all name value there because his dad's a Hall of Famer. Like he's had, spurts where he's been hot, but I don't think he's a very, very good MLB player. But yeah, I think that's you hit the nail on the head there, Mitch. I think that it's if you could put Madrigal in the package for Danny Jansen, yes, I would do it. But I don't think that the Jays are going to take it.
Okay. We brought up catcher. Where do you think they're going to go with catcher? I mean, I know you're heartbroken, Jake, that Austin Hedges signed with the Pirates. Like,
Jed, we could have had the best looking team in baseball, and you let Austin Hedges go.
Woo!
Jeez, it would have been too much, honestly.
My goodness.
Austin
sound like
Hedges,
Fez from that 70s show, talking about dudes.
Austin Hedges signs with the perfect team for a player like Austin Hedges with the Pirates. He is a perfect Pirate player to be picked up. But the sad thing is, we've made fun of Austin Hedges because he can't hit, and watch, he absolutely just rakes against the Cubs this year.
The Cubs, yeah.
He will absolutely hit a walk-off home run or have like a 7 RBI game guaranteed. But big name that I think a lot of people have been focusing on is Tucker Barnhart, known as a good game caller. Just well, works with pitchers well. He is kind of a black hole when it comes to offensive as of late, but he has hit righties pretty decent. So I don't know. I know they're looking for, with having Gomes as a right-handed bat, they're looking probably for a left-handed bat with catcher to kind of platoon in with him. But I don't know. What do you think of having a Tucker Barnhart?
I want a good game manager.
I mean, he was decent when he was with the Cardinals and back in the day.
Oh, I think we need somebody that can handle the pitching staff as well as like Jan Gomes does when he's playing.
And I do remember, like, they're like on the compound when he signed with the Tigers, got traded to the Tigers. Like they were pretty like excited. Like Ian had nothing but great things to say about Barnhart. So I mean, it wouldn't be a bad. I don't know him as person. He might be a great clubhouse guy, and that's kind of what you need sometimes as from the catching position of. And we kind of saw that's where Jed's direction was going. Like he didn't want an offensive first catcher. He wanted defensive first catcher. Gomes. That's why he let Wilson go. It might be a good signing on a short term before you have like a Miguel Amaya come up. And I mean, there's a lot of offense there. And if they can work on his defense to get better, like why not?
Is he actually going to play catcher?
Amaya, yeah, I think.
Amaya?
Or he might end up DHing, but I think they're going to, depending on injuries. But I don't mind Barnhart.
So here's my question.
Not everybody can have a Johnny Bench.
Most people do not have a Johnny Bench for what it's worth. I am. Are we okay with just Jan Gomes and Higgy? Do we that's kind of
if
where
we
I'm
got
at
the
right
Higgins from first half. Yes, but Higgins' second half really struggled hitting. Like he fell
But we're
off.
talking Tucker Barnhart who
That's
can't
true.
hit either.
That's
so like
true.
you've got a
Doesn't
guy in the
matter.
system. You've got a guy in the system who's on a rookie contract.
We had the
versus-
best defensive right fielder for how many years, and he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat.
But
It doesn't matter.
but-
Not every position's got to hit.
I mean,
Have him step into one.
I'm trying to pull up who.
Crowd
I mean,
play,
I like
lean
I like
in.
the fact that Higgins can slide over and play first. I think he played third. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I feel like
I think he did
I know
play a little
in
third, yeah.
Iowa he played some third base. I know at the Iowa Cubs he played some third. Like he's very versatile. He when he gets hot, he can keep that going for a month or two. He did that in the first half. He hit really well. I wouldn't want to write off Higgins. I do have a shirt that he owned that I bought on eBay that has his name written. It's a Cub shirt, so I don't know. Why not keep Higgins? I
What
don't wanna see
season
him back
was
at
it?
Iowa.
We used like 8 different catchers. Was it last
Oh
year?
God, that was 2021, I think.
Yeah,
Was it? They better have a plan.
yeah,
That's all
Yeah,
I'm
that was
saying.
that was before we got Gomes because it was like,
yep.
I mean, you name a catcher and he played for the Cubs that year.
He played a
Remember,
game, at
Tony
least.
Walters. Yeah,
I missed that
Tony
game.
Walters was pretty rough. I'm looking at our minor league depth here to see if there's anybody else that could like fill in after Higgins and I don't see any on the Iowa Cubs roster right now. So
Eric coming through in the clutch. Higgins played a little third when Wisdom was
That's what I thought.
injured.
yeah,
I was
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, yeah, because of the defensive versatility too, like Higgins makes sense to keep on the roster. So I don't know, man. All along I would have it's been on my mind that I would not be surprised if they don't end up getting another catcher. I think honestly it would be more likely. I'm going to say this and then they'll sign Barnhart, but I think honestly it'd be more likely that they make a trade for a controllable catcher.
Yep,
But,
I can see that.
Yeah.
A name that we haven't brought up is Trey Mancini. I would love for them to sign Conforto and Trey Mancini. Like I would, and then just stick with Higgins.
Let me guess, they're both good looking.
I mean, Trey Mancini, he ain't bad.
Christ.
He ain't bad. I mean,
Good
7 out of
Lord.
10. We're rating him.
Italian boy.
But yeah, I mean, I like what Trey Mancini. He is going to provide leadership. He's, another guy that's beat cancer. He played great on a really bad Orioles team for all those years, and then once they got good, they traded him to the Astros.
What kind of
I mean-
cancer? Did he have nut cancer too?
No, he had colon cancer.
Colon
I believe.
cancer, yeah.
I had an interesting conversation with Ian the day after.
We brought up probably a negative memory of Austin Romine 2021. But yeah, that's what I would like. I would like a Conforto, Trey Mancini, like Trey Mancini to mix in. I would like a left-handed, I want a right-handed first baseman at bat signing because Mervis is left-handed, so it makes sense to get Trey Mancini in there to kind of platoon in with Mervis, especially this being his first year. And if you get Mancini on a 1 or 2 year deal, why not? And then get Conforto. Like, why not? That adds a lot of pop and some good contact in this order. It makes where the pitchers are gonna have to work. And last year there was quite a few innings where they could just coast through an inning there in like the second and in the sixth inning. They could just coast because they had 3 guys back to back that didn't provide much power or probability of them getting a hit. So like I like those 2 signings. But let's dig in before we end, because we're hitting the 50-minute mark of looking at our pitching staff. Like, 'cause I want to end on that, because like I was looking at this after we now have signed Smyly, added Smyly to the rotation or brought him back. You have Stroh, Steele, Tyone, which made it official today in his press conference of signing Smyly, Hendricks as your 5. And then you have Wisniewski, Sampson, Assad, and Thompson as fill-in guys, which they're going to fill in throughout the year. Those 5 will not pitch every 5 days the whole year. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be soreness. There's going to be where they miss a start.
So how are you 2 rating this pitching staff by ERA, whip, or jawline?
I mean, Tyone's big dude. He has a pretty big jawline. I mean, I bet he could take a punch. No, but like overall, like that plays, and that's going to provide you some really good wins. Like I can't remember who was tweeting out ERA, and they compared the Cubs, which was, I think it was like a team RA or of 394, and the Cardinals, who was projected to be one of the better pitching staffs last year, was only like 389 or something like that. The Cubs weren't that far off. I think the Cubs were sitting in the top 10 for ERA in baseball last year.
What blew my mind is for most of the season last year, it was like a mixed bag of starters.
Exactly, because the injuries. I mean, Stroman was out for injuries. Hendricks was out for a really long time. Smyly was down. You had Steele that went down for a little bit, and you had guys fill in. You had Sampson, who just shoved and surprised us. You had Assad towards the end of last year pitch really, really well. You had Thompson come in, which did amazing. Like there's just guys like I'm super excited. And when you have Wisniewski, that
I think you mean Winnebago.
The dude can actually just straight shove, and I can't wait till he pitches every 5th day, and he's got a rotation spot shirt up, and he might not be your number 1, but he's going to be a fun number 2, 3 guy. When you look at this, it's a bunch of number like 2s. It's not like you don't have the 1 frontline starter, but it's a decent pitching staff. It plays.
I think it starts with Stroman at a 2, Tyone at a 3, Steele at a 3. So like, yeah. I think one name that I saw tweeted about today, and I don't see anything on Bleacher Nation. I haven't I don't know if we've written about it on. I don't know if they've written about it on Tap, but I saw Michael Fulmer.
Yes, I saw that too.
And Michael Fulmer is a guy who was a top prospect for the Tigers at one point. I think there had been trade rumors like years ago. He got traded at the deadline last season, but I can't remember who he got traded to.
Greg Zumak had a little bit of tweet thread that went out, but I also heard, who was it? A big analyst came out and said that he could see Fulmer with the Cubs. Yeah.
I think the thing is so he got in 2021, he was transferred to the bullpen. He's a lefty, and his stuff is played really well in the bullpen, like back end relievers type stuff.
Yeah,
I think you mean arm barn.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's the arm barn. That's correct. Got to get back into the swing of the arm barn terminology. But it is possible that the Cubs sign him and he becomes, a swingman type guy or like a long reliever. So that's something that I have on the radar. But then we also have to think about too the depth in the minors. Like Cam Sanders is going to get a chance this year. I would say a spot start but it'll probably be like a short start. Like I think we saw in Thompson's first start, like maybe it was 4 innings.
Yep.
And then we still have Caleb Killian, and I bet Jordan Wicks makes his debut by the end of the season.
Yep.
So
I've heard a lot of people say that too.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like we as you just brought up, Mitch, the injuries pile up and you need guys to eat innings. And I'd much rather bring somebody else, another known quantity free agent on, than rely on a Matt Swarmer type again.
Yep. Which, yes,
that's
a Matt Swarmer signed baseball.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have another signed ball that we didn't give away?
No, I gave that one away. But yeah, like you bring up Michael Fulmer, dude has velocity, has an absolute killer slider. I know the end of last year he's working on a sweeper. Could be a great target out of the bullpen for the Cubs to go after. I would definitely support that, and possible like a fill-in starter. So I'm not too worried about the Cubs getting bullpen arms. They're gonna fill that in, and Jed has proven that he does a great job in making a bullpen. But we do have a lot of young guys that's going to fill in that bullpen, which I'm sure before the season starts, we'll have a full episode just on the Cubs bullpen. But yeah, the thing that this does, the signing of Dansby Swanson, is it sets the tone. The Cubs are back in wanting to win again, and that's what it tells fans. That's what it tells the rest of Major League Baseball, that like, hey, we're not like we were last year where we're selling off. Like we're starting, the wave is starting to come, and get ready to ride it. And us Cubs fans need to get excited. Like I know the last couple of weeks, there was a lot of negativity and the waiting and being patient with Jed. Like, and I tried not to like get all negative and fall into that, because it's like getting angry of something you can't control. Like, what's the point of giving your energy off to that? We didn't know what Jed was going to do. There was still another shortstop out there, and from the sound of it, that's who Jed wanted the whole time. Jed wanted Swanson for the reason that contract shows. The same reason why he didn't offer a contract to Correa. Like, he probably met with them. They had their conversations, and Jed was like, no, like, we're not going to do that. It seemed like they've had a plan, and they followed it with Tyone. Like, day one, that was their target, and they went hard after him. You saw in the press conference how much that meant to Tyone. Like, they've had a plan, whether we sometimes maybe disagreed with it. Like, Jed's had his plan, and I think that's what's happening here. And hopefully we do pick up, and he's not done. And it sounds like from people around baseball that the Cubs aren't going to be done. So hopefully the next time we have a podcast, we're talking about the Trey Mancini, Fulmer, Conforto signing.
And I think it's worth saying too, I agree. And I think it's worth saying, of those three, I'm now on the ship that Conforto is my top priority.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, that would put Cubs right there and saying, hey, Cardinals, we're not too far behind. Like, on paper, like, yeah, we don't have the stars maybe that they have at third base. But we're not too bad on paper, and I'm excited to see this play out this season. And alone, that just gets something. Like, think about how tough it was to watch Cubs baseball last year. We might not have to deal with that this year. So that's going to make doing a podcast fun again. And so I'm excited to get into it. But Jeff, do you have your?
Oh yeah. I do. All right. For this week's You Can't Fix Stupid. A Texas mystery man dubbed Edward Scissorhands cuts his neighbor's trees overnight. Neighbors want to nip this vandal in the bud. A mystery man who residents have dubbed Edward Scissorhands has been bizarrely snipping branches off residents' trees late at night in Fort Worth, Texas, stumping cops and neighbors. The self-appointed arborist, Oddball, has trimmed at least a dozen trees on streets in front of homes in his area and was caught on camera several times mid-snip, according to CBS. Sometimes he'll just take a little bit off, but then other people's trees he'll take a massive gobs. Neighbor Ashley Thoman fumed. In home surveillance footage, the branch bandit can be seen doing the deed, normally around 3 a.m. That's not what I'm doing at 3 a.m. I'm going to the bathroom at 3 a.m. I'm not trimming trees. With an unleashed dog before stepping back to admire his work. Residents just want him to leave them alone.
Does he have like spotlights? I got a lot of question here. Like, how is he seeing what he's doing and making sure that, like, is he like making him into
It's a
like
pretty decent lit neighborhood, I guess.
Okay.
So I was talking to my wife Emily, and I was like, "Hey, we had a storm last night." The neighbor said, referencing down limbs in the front of his home, and she was like, "Oh no, that's just Edward Scissorhands." And I was like, "Oh, so what?" His wife Emily said that the limb lifter had earned the nickname, a nod to the 1990 Johnny Depp movie, due to his lust for slicing. People in the neighborhood were talking about it, and it seems like he was just hitting certain streets. Emily said, police are now using the footage to investigate who the unwanted tree trimmer may be. The station reported other residents are peeved because they have to pay for the trees through their homeowners association. Man, that would piss me off.
Do you think he's trimming Christmas trees?
I think he's just trimming everything, man. I tell you what, I have threatened to poison the trees across from my street because nobody rakes their leaves. But I don't do it because the Toomer's Corner in Auburn, that tree that got killed. Yeah, I'm not going to jail over killing trees.
It's also better for the trees to leave the leaves down.
But
It is.
You know that?
sucks for my grass. It kills the grass.
Actually, it'd provide more nutrients.
Grass is bad for the environment, Jeff.
Can you imagine if that was your thing? Trimming trees in the middle of the night?
It's odd.
It's
It's really
pretty
odd. Like, takes me back to the show they had on TV where people eat like the stuffing out of their couches and shit.
Oh yeah, my strange addiction. My strange addiction is getting up at 3 a.m. and trimming my neighbor's trees.
Right? Man, that branch is hanging too low. I'm getting it.
He's pegging it throughout the day. He's like, I got to get that branch this morning.
I mean, when I lived in
morning.
town, I would appreciate it if you'd have come and trimmed, save me some work.
Yeah,
I would
that's
actually
what
left him a
yeah.
list of like things to do. Like, hey,
the weird and bizarre things that people will think to do.
awesome. Well, that does it for episode 103 of the Dingers podcast. Make sure you follow us at Dinger Cubs. Make sure you're following our buddies, our teammates on Tap Sports Network, Cubs on Tap at Cubbies on Tap at Twitter. And yeah, again, if you have some time to read some articles, the On Tap Sports Network has some great articles they're pumping out about our Cubbies. And so, yeah, go check them out. And yeah, go check out all the other, if you're a Bears fan, they got articles on there, Blackhawks, the Hounds. Maybe they have some of the Storm. I don't know. We're going to all become soccer fans now, right? Because the power couple of Chicago is
Red
there.
Stars.
Red Stars. What did I say? Storm? It's
Yeah.
Red Stars. So yeah, go check out ontapsportsnetwork.com to get all your articles there. But that does it for episode 123 of the Dingers podcast. Thanks for listening.